Hello, welcome to the first MoonDay Meetup. I am so excited that you're here. I feel that containers like this that help us to build our self-discernment, that create space for us to really quiet and sit and reflect and automatic write, those spaces are going to feel really valuable for us in the year ahead. And I'm going to share with you why I feel that way. So I have literally created a space for us all to do that. I know that most of us have some sort of practice that helps us to connect and channel and, really guide ourselves. And I still feel that creating a space for that really connects us to others like us and gives us some group energy. It opens the bandwidth for that reflection. And when we open the bandwidth, there's just more juice, there's more energy, there's more perspective. And so I've just created a group and you are a part of it now. And I'm so happy you're here. And as I shared in the group before I hit this recording, the structure of this call is I will be sharing an overview of 2023. I'll be dialing in very specifically about this week that we're in right now. And then I'll be sharing some practices that you can do at home to help you connect even more fully with your inner discernment at really potent and important astrological times. And the reason I feel that's so important is because our faith and our inner discernment and our personal connection with the field of wisdom that we are all connected to, our personal connection is going to be vitally important moving forward in this world. And as if it wasn't already, it's going to get even more important as we move forward. And creating a neural pathway over and over and over to that field of wisdom is going to create the energetic and muscle memory to have that when it really counts, when we're not sitting in a group, when we're not holding space, when we're not in meditation. It'll be active and present for us when we're in the middle of a really heated conversation, or when we experience something that really affects us emotionally and we've got to keep our head right, or we've got to, understand what this experience is doing for us, what opportunities and gates are being presented to us in those moments. And I believe by practicing that connection to faith, it'll activate exactly when we need it, when things get hairy. And I'm not saying like things are going to get super hairy this year, even though there will be some destabilization. But what I am saying is no matter what in our lives, we're going to face moments where we are called in to practice our tools and practice our wisdom. And these are we can actually tangibly feel that the situation could have gone so much differently if we were not fully connected to our truth, our love, our faith, our acceptance, the grander values that we have. And this overarching knowing that everything that's happening for us is in a container to evolve us and to help us to grow and to help us connect more fully with each other. So that's my little introductory spiel. Now I'm going to start talking a little bit about 2022 as a whole. I'm going to actually share my screen and move this here. Okay. So the year ahead is the year of the water rabbit. If you've heard me talk recently, you've heard me kind of share how the Chinese animals actually do have some relevance to the way that we kind of navigate and behave in the years. So in 2020, we had the year of the rat. And if you can imagine, rats like to go into hiding, like they like to go into their private little pod groups of rats. They kind of go underneath. And it also showed us 2020, it showed us how much accumulation that was unnecessary in our lives, how much accumulation we had. And so there was a lot of clearing. It was like a wrecking ball sort of year. And so after we cleared all the debris and rubble from our lives in 2020, we stepped into a space of 2021, which was the year of the ox. And the ox, excuse me, hold on. Oh, never mind. It's just going to be like that. The year of the ox was a year where we actually really put our back into it. We put the yoke on our back. We forged these intentions. We were starting from a place of rubble from the past and intentions for the future. So it's kind of like we went into a space of like a burned down house, and some things were salvageable and some things were not. And we had to sort of sift through and decide, what am I going to take with me into the future? And during the summer of 2021, we would have had some sort of real ground leveling moment where we're like, nope, I just have to let all these things go, and I'm going to double down on the things that work, and I just gotta do the work. So that led us into 2022, which was the year of the water tiger. And this whole year was about establishing boundaries, creating self-sustainability. And the first half of 2022, we were focusing on sustainability between us and the bigger, broader outside world. So we would have changed maybe where we lived. We would have changed the way we did business. We would have changed some of our group affiliations. And then as we got to mid-year, we started changing our sustainability within our personal relationships. So a lot of relationship issues could have come up. Codependency things where we're like, oh, I can't actually depend on this pattern in relationship anymore. I actually need to completely come into my own courage, my own confidence, my own capabilities, because this person I'm in relationship with has their own world that they're navigating. And if I adopt their world as mine, that's not sustainable for me. I actually need to understand I have a separate world from them. So now, as we get into 2023, the next 6 months are going to be all about creating sustainability between me and me. What is sustainable for my energy? What's sustainable for my money? What's sustainable for my eating habits? So it's getting very, very, very personal, because it's preparing us for a big changeover in July, when we are completely free to express, lead, show up exactly as we are. We're going to be stepping into a very individuated moment, and that individuation is going to be supported by all of the self-sustainability that we cultivate within ourselves in the next 6 months. So in order for us to gain that sustainability, we're going to have to be these little water rabbits. To bring it back to the animals, the water rabbit is someone who is very sensitive, very connected to the vibrations of the earth, very connected to their own senses. There'll be a rabbit. I don't know if any of you have seen the show Watership Down. In Watership Down, there's this burrow of rabbits, and there's one psychic little rabbit who just has everything seems to look totally fine. But this little psychic rabbit is like, I just have a feeling that we need to head into this other high ground that's going to be safer and more sustainable and more practical for our lives. And there was a lot of bullying within the movie of like, no, we should keep things the way they are. Everything's fine. Everything's working just fine. Just be quiet and don't wreck the status quo. But there was a part of that like branching off burrow that knew that things were not okay. Things were not sustainable. Things were not exactly the way that they could be. They're not optimal. And so we're going to be facing that within ourselves. And we literally have, in this first week of January, we literally have an energy that's calling us to dance with our old self. So as we approach this first week, there is an invitation to recognize how much we've grown in the past year, and to see that even as we enter the new year, there is this, oh, I used to do things like that. I used to think that. I used to let myself become derailed. I used to nourish those behaviors and feel like I couldn't make any progress because of them. But this year, I actually feel like I'm different, and it's not so hard for me to dance with that idea or story anymore. But this whole week, we're going to kind of experience this dance. And that beginning of Watership Down, and even though we're not quite into the year of the water rabbit technically, since I think that happens in February, we're already invited to witness what parts of our lives are no longer in, they're no longer being ignored by us. We can't ignore it anymore. We really need to like take a look at the burrow and make sure that this is something that's going to sustain us for the long haul. And it's because it's sustainable for us on a physical, personal, energetic, and emotional level. So the big shifts of 2023 are actually going to start taking place in March of this year. And so what we're doing in this first 3 months of the year is we're closing down a very long cycle. We're closing down a Pluto cycle. And the closing down of the Pluto cycle won't just be in these 3 months. We'll actually have 3 years to fully close it, but we'll see the preview of the next chapter in March, and it will probably be pretty destabilizing on a kind of telecommunications level. I imagine there'll be some kind of destabilizing information that will bring us into an awareness of like, oh my gosh, the world really is changing, as if we didn't know, as if we didn't already see the signs. But there probably will be something pretty specific, pretty obvious that the entire collective will experience, similar to the real estate bubble bust in 2008. In 2008, that's when Pluto moved into Capricorn, and we experienced a pretty big shift. And whether that affected you personally or not, we all witnessed it, and it wasn't business as usual from that point forward. We're going to have something similar to that in March, and I believe it'll be in a space of collective truths. It'll be in a space of how we won't be able to be duped or manipulated as easily. Well, let me be clear. There's going to be 2 camps. There's going to be a camp of people who are like, oh my gosh, it's so obvious that I have to trust my inner discernment 100%. There's literally no one anywhere that can tell me what is true for me, because I know what my body feels. I know what makes me thrive and what makes me feel like I'm perishing. And no matter what anyone out there says, I cannot be influenced by this information anymore. So the collapse of information impacting us or manipulating us is inevitable over the next few years, but it will start in March. So that is one of the big shifts. So building your discernment now will create this ironclad trust in yourself that will maneuver you through that big shift of Pluto. The other piece that is shifting is Saturn. Saturn will be moving into the sign of Pisces. And for the last 2.5 years, which has been the entire experience of the pandemic, we've been called into an awareness that we are a part of a bigger world, that there are whole camps of people out there. There are whole fields of consciousness. There are people that have very strong opinions and beliefs, and we had to decide who we actually felt we belonged to. So there was a lot of, okay, we're a part of a network. Okay, I don't feel necessarily aligned with this part of the network, but I do feel aligned with this part of the network. So we were kind of choosing our teams, choosing our tribe, choosing the vibration that felt like it matched us most fully. So there would have been a lot of cutting off of vibrations and tribes and groups of people that just didn't resonate with us anymore. And there would have been a doubling down on communities that do resonate. And for the time of the last 2.5 years, there would have been, the way you would have known that you resonated is because it would have built some confidence in your own story and your own truth in yourself. Like, we put ourselves in rooms and conversations and containers where what was said only amplified the truth that we felt inside. And it was like practice. Like, you share your truth, I feel mine. Whether or not I completely agree with everything you're saying, I still feel like you're unlocking more of my truth. And we're sort of grokking this thing together as you impact me and I share my truth and impact you. So beautiful container. We have about 3 months left of that, which is why I decided to dedicate these 3 months to a container to share even more of that and to really, really work a group to mastermind and catalyze more of that confidence within. Because when Saturn heads into Pisces, I believe that only our inner faith structures are going to feel solid for us. That we are going to step into a time where we may not even choose to step into a group with someone else to validate our own truth. We may actually have to act as a sovereign being and really, really trust ourselves in the moment. Like a rabbit who's like, you know what, you guys do whatever you're going to do. I got to go this way. You know what, you guys, whatever. Like, I have to trust myself, even though my entire peer group is telling me, no, I don't know. Blah, blah. Great. You guys do what's right for you. I got to do what's right for me. And it's not in a, like, in a way where you don't care about them anymore. You're still going to share your truth, but we need to know that if we go against our greater, most internal, strongest inner discernment, if we go against it, we're going to feel the energy of that immediately. We're going to feel that, like, oh, I should have trusted myself. Even though this person that I love was saying, no, we don't have to do that. I should have always trusted myself. So we'll be called into that really strongly in March when Saturn moves into Pisces. And then we'll have 2.5 years of really following our own faith structure. And that will only increase more when we have that nodal changeover in July that calls us into our individuated leadership. What will be growing starting in July is our individuation. What will be declining will be our dependence in relationship to make those decisions. So I'm not saying that relationships are going to go away. What I am saying is our dependency on relationships to lead us will be declining. And we'll eventually grow a new paradigm of relationship completely. And we'll be doing that over the course of the next 2 years. So now I would like to kind of come into this week. We had a different experience of New Year's Eve this year. Probably it felt a little less like party and like pleasurable than other years past. And that would have been because, you know, Venus and Pluto had an exact conjunction right near midnight on New Year's Eve. And so basically Venus is the pleasure, the joy, the passion, like sweet, light, amazing, receptive things. When Venus comes into conjunction with Pluto, basically Pluto's like the stern parent that's like, I'm sorry, I know you wanted to do that, but there's no chance you can. I'm putting a hard boundary stop on that. It is impossible for you to have that experience right now, and it's for your own good. And so if you did have a really beautiful time, maybe it's because you actually had some like more serious, you know, some values around like, I'm going to get a good night's sleep or whatever. I know in my area, some people didn't have power. There was so much snow, no one could drive anywhere. Like a lot of plans were disrupted. And what ended up happening was something a little more serious and a little more mature and maybe a little less pleasurable, but maybe in some ways for our own good. And then immediately after we experienced that kind of shutdown, on Sunday, which was yesterday, we had a Sun Chiron square. And what that would have indicated is that there would have been, instead of like maybe we experienced some optimism and like, okay, fortitude, we could have also experienced, oh man, like that dance between the old self and the new self, that dance between the like, man, nothing's going to change this year. I don't know, like maybe I'm not really on my game. There could have just been some internal dialogue that brought up some doubt, some depressing thoughts, some worry. And we would have sat with that and been like, am I really, is this the truth? Have I learned anything this year that could help me to navigate the doubt and the fears that are coming up right now? And in the midst of all of that, Venus was exactly opposite Black Moon Lilith. So she came into a conjunction with Pluto, which was like, no. Then she came into a space of looking at anything like, was it my fault? Did I do something wrong? Like, am I sure I can deliver on what I think I want to become this year? Like, am I enough for this? So there could have been some vulnerable thoughts and doubts that came in yesterday, and they're still present today, but now we're in this container and Venus is moving on into, she's moving on into Aquarius, which is another reason why I decided to start this group container today. When Venus is in Aquarius, she feels seen and supported by those people that she's chosen to affiliate with. She feels like everything is going to be okay because look at everyone else having the same experience I'm having. She feels like, you know what, the world is bigger than my own experience. And so there's something very comforting about Venus stepping into groups, about finding pleasure within the container of a group. And so everyone has Aquarian energy in a different place in their chart, but essentially that energy is still universal. And I wanted to share it. Most of the people in this group are probably on my email list, or they've received the January planner that I've created, or maybe you would even purchase this planner. But even if you don't have this planner, there are ways to connect to the energies of every day that like are very, very vital when we kind of navigate weeks ahead. And I just stumbled over that entire sentence. But what I'm trying to say is, if we create some kind of journal, if we create some sort of space to be reflective every day on how we're feeling, and we just write a few words down, we just write a few things down, we will begin to see patterns over time. And I have been doing this for years. This is my 2021. In the past, I would get blank planners and I would fill it all in with the astrology. This is my planner for 2022. Like I said, it's similar. In the past, I would get these blank planners, and this time I just made my own planner with all the information in it and with the space to journal right there. And to me, my entire world revolves around these cycles. So I even put all of my plans, my actual plans, into these planners as well, because it's important for me to know, geez, am I going to have a Cancer full moon this week on the 6th? Yes, I am. How do I experience Cancer full moons? Well, I've been paying attention for the past few years. The way I experience is that I like to lay low. I like to cry. I like to lay in my bed and be held on Cancer full moons. So guess what? I'm probably not going to plan some big extroverted activity during that time. And so what I've done, even though maybe you haven't gone through and journaled for the past few years, what I have done is I've written down some key guidance for each of the major astrological movements, key guidance for these transits that'll just kind of give you a pause and a focal point. And then I have a question for you in this journal that will open you up to greater discernment and kick off any kind of journaling that you would do. And while I didn't include every major transit, I did include a lot, the ones that you'll probably feel pretty obviously. So I'm just going to share a little bit about today so you can kind of see what I mean. So on January 2nd, as I explained, Venus is moving into Aquarius. In the journal I have here, we start the year opening up to the reality that we are not an island, that we don't exist all by ourselves, but we are a thread within the fabric of our community. We impact each other when we show up. And that's important for us to acknowledge because it takes us out of our small self and puts us into the family, the human family that we're a part of. Our receptivity meets the needs of those we are in connection with. Our receptivity, the way that we open up, receive each other, fully listen to each other, fully connect with each other, that will actually meet the needs of those we're in connection with. What it basically means is when we listen, we actually meet the needs of the people we love when we listen. And so literally the last word is listen. So, even though we're working on our own sustainability, even though we are, getting ahead, getting like a grip on planning our own lives, we are not an island. We are in relationship with everyone, and what we do for ourselves really impacts everyone else in our life. And so the question I have is, can I receive what I desire by observing and connecting with the greater collective? So I guess the inherent question in that question is, what do you desire? So what do you desire? What can you receive what you desire? And can you receive what you desire by observing and connecting with others? And so basically, I would sit with that question and I would let myself receive whatever inner discernment would come from that, whatever pictures or images or ideas. And then I would jot a few things down in any journal with the date. And I would keep a record of that, because when we do that, we open up our bandwidth and we create a neural connection to the part of us that receives guidance, love, wisdom, information. Our brain doesn't actually hold as much information as we would like to think it does. It's more of a radio than a library. And our radio is sometimes tuned to a station that is really repetitive. It plays the same songs over and over and the same annoying advertisements that manipulate our behavior. And it's just a radio. Those are not actually our thoughts, and those are not actually our advertisements. It's just what we're tuned to. This group container is meant to tune our radios to a different station that has different questions, different advertisements, and different songs. And that is my whole reason for doing this. I'm like, there's so many radio stations. Let's tune into a different one for a little while and see what happens. And then from this container, see how that radio station plays out over the week and open up space and journal about that and see what happens. Like, the most amazing things happen. I can't even tell you what will happen because it only happens when it happens, right? Like, that's kind of a silly thing to say, but anyways, okay, what did I covered 2022 overview. I talked about the major shifts of this year. I discussed the energy of this week in brief. I will say there is something I did want to talk about. There are a few other minor transits this week that are going to feel they're going to be of notable attention. One of them is a trine between the Sun and Uranus on Thursday. This is probably going to give us some sort of like excited, like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. It's like there will be some sort of indication or sign that the changes that you're making are actually landing. They're actually materializing. It'll, like, for instance, I'm doing a fitness challenge. I haven't really seen a lot of my results, but I'll be nearing week 2 around this time. And I'm willing to bet that some of the tangible, measurable results will probably come by Thursday. And I'm not experiencing them now, but because I have the wherewithal to know that they probably won't come till Thursday, I'm not sweating it. I am like, okay, probably Thursday that's going to happen. And there's also going to be a Sun-Mercury conjunction on the 7th, which Mercury's retrograde right now. It just started moving retrograde on the 27th. So we have about 3 weeks of this kind of rethinking, restructuring of our mind, restructuring our behaviors kind of period. And on that day, I think there'll be some sort of epiphany of like, oh, interesting. Okay, I totally see the distinction between the way I used to operate and think and the way I think and operate now, because I've been tuning my radio to a different station. And now I'm having a different quality of thoughts altogether. So those are a couple of key days to remember. And what I would do is mark them on your calendar and then actually open up some space to, okay, so what kind of revolutionary results am I feeling on Thursday? Okay, what kind of mind changes am I experiencing on Saturday? On the full moon in Cancer, okay, what kind of reflection am I experiencing on Friday that's giving me a sense of being held in my life, giving me a sense that it's safe, giving me a sense of what I need even more of to feel held and safe. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. This went a little bit, 7 minutes. Well, I started it at 10:05. So I guess I'm like literally right on time, which is pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I'm going to open it up for conversation, questions. We're going to take about 20 to 30 minutes to workshop this and to come up. If I would love for everyone who wants to be vocal and who wants to be involved to ask questions, to talk about some of the rituals and habits that they have. If you're watching this recording after the fact, oops, here we go. If you're watching this recording after the fact, I'm going to make sure that there's ways for you to connect with this group in the future somehow in somewhere linked around this video. So look for that and maybe I'll see you within the longer container. All right. Boop, boop.